Good morning, guys. It is Friday, March 15th, 2024. This is Bathrow Business. I got my coffee and I got the news. And just kind of want to say this is my 100th post on this channel. So I started this channel a little over a year ago. It was January 1st, 2023. And I took a very long hiatus in the spring, summer, and fall. Came back in full swing in November and been going strong ever since. I think I came back strong in October. So I've been doing this for a little bit now. I've had 100 posts as of today. I've had some great content that you guys, well, I shouldn't say I've had great content. I've had great feedback on the content I've gotten from you guys. I've had a lot of videos that have done very well, at least by my standards. I think 1,000 people looking at my video is kind of a major thing for me. That's 1,000 people that actually found my content interesting. And I've had a few videos that have done that and more. I just want to thank you guys if you're subscribed, if you tune in daily to listen to my rambles about the economy. I greatly appreciate it. So enough sentimentality. Let's get into the news. So it's kind of a slow day. I'm not going to lie. There's not too many stories that I found too overwhelming interesting. It is Friday on St. Patty's weekend, so nobody really cares. Everybody wants to go out, drink, and party, myself included. I do still have to go to work. But let's talk about a couple of stories. One sec, sip of coffee. It's already cold. So Bitcoin, let's talk about Bitcoin first. So Bitcoin shows a lot of volatility again as it's now dropped below, back down to 67,000. So it's dropped overnight from about 73,000 down to 67. Not unusual for Bitcoin. Honestly, I think most people that are understanding the commodity, the currency, whatever you want to call it, kind of expect this to happen, right? I mean, sooner or later, Bitcoin drops back down. However, I think this just does exemplify the volatility of it. Here we have something that has dropped about $5,000 in just one night, unexplainably. I think it definitely pokes holes into the fact that Bitcoin could ever be a currency. There's just not enough stability behind it. I know people will say, well, it'll get to a point of stability once more mining is done. But I just don't have that kind of confidence, seeing as how it's been around for almost 15 years and it's still very volatile. Now, I wouldn't say it's much. It's definitely less volatile than it probably was in its early stages, but I don't think its volatility eases at every time it goes to a higher price point. I think the volatility is pretty standard and baked into the asset. I actually listened to a very interesting podcast. I recommend you guys check it out. It's Impact Theory, and it's with Peter Schiff debating another man whose full name I do not know. It's Raul something. And they had like a 2-hour-long debate on Bitcoin versus gold. I actually do side on Peter Schiff's side. I am more gold than Bitcoin. I just don't see the value in Bitcoin that I think a lot of people do. But the debate is definitely worth listening to. I think the greatest takeaway is their sheer agreement. They're pretty much agreeing that the U.S. is headed for a cliff in regards to debt to GDP, to the fact that inflation is continuing. The only way we seem to be getting out of debt is to print more money to inflate the currency further just to pay the debt. It's causing, obviously, spikes in assets. We can talk all day about, inflation numbers are going up, inflation numbers are going down, but we all know in reality those numbers are artificial because they're just essentially measuring consumer goods. They're not really measuring assets, whereas assets are at all-time highs. Bitcoin is at an all-time high. Gold is at an all-time high. Homes are at an all-time high. The stock market is at an all-time high. So as these assets become more and more expensive, they become more and more out of reach of the common person. And the disparity in the economy seems to grow, or obviously will grow in response to that. So income inequality is going to be increasing. And I completely agree with their take that I think a day of reckoning is coming for the U.S. debt. Now, I know this is a monster that has been on the horizon for like 40 years. Every few years we hear about the debt, but I think everybody will admit it's gotten a little bit ridiculous, seeing as how I just checked it. I thought it was at a 125% ratio. It's actually at 123%, which isn't that much better. So in other words, we have more debt than GDP production, 125 to 1, essentially, 125 to 100. So essentially, we've got more debt than we can actually produce to pay for it. And the fact that there could be a drop in GDP at any moment if there's a recession just makes that number that much scarier. So I think there is kind of a day of reckoning coming for this, and something we need to pay attention to. And I don't think it's a Democrat or Republican issue, because no matter who's in power, the debt just goes up. So that's kind of my rant on the debt and Bitcoin, and I will move on to the next story. EVs. So I don't like to talk. Like I say, I don't like to talk about other countries in regards to this channel because I like to keep it domestic. I try to keep it centered to Utah as much as I can. But another EV player is coming to the market. So NIO, which is a Chinese luxury EV, is now launching a general purpose EV. So this is the common man's EV, something that's going to be at a lower price point. I think the jump that China wants to make into the U.S. is definitely ramping up as they're trying to come up with more entrants. Just a couple days ago, we talked about Xiaomi, which was a cell phone manufacturer, that are launching an EV as well. So I think definitely there's going to be sooner or later an invasion of Chinese manufacturers of EVs here into the United States, and I think that horizon is moving closer and closer. Yesterday, actually, I saw a Polestar here in Utah. I didn't even know they sold in the United States, but there was one on the road. So the foreign EV market hasn't even hit yet. So I think the real competition with EVs in regards to U.S. markets, Tesla, etc., is actually just starting. I think everything we've seen up to this has been just a preamble, and the real EV war is just going to get started probably here in the next decade. Next story I'm going to talk about is another one I don't like to talk about, is politics. So I try to keep politics out of the channel because I don't think it's not what I want to focus on. I want to focus on the economy. Obviously, there's always an interplay, but I want to focus mostly on the hard facts of the economy and stay out of the controversy of politics. I just want to mention this because it echoes what I was saying yesterday. I did not expect this from Donald Trump, but Donald Trump says that TikTok is less of a danger in the U.S. than Facebook and Meta. This is actually what we were talking about yesterday, the fact that TikTok is being banned and is under the gun to either sell or not, when Facebook, Meta, Google, insert social media company here, right here in the United States, do the same thing as TikTok, and somehow just have no issue with that. And those with TikTok, it's a company that's based in a foreign land, which I don't really care about because they can't get to me. Whereas here in the United States, Facebook, Meta, Twitter, all these companies are here domestic. That data can be used against me very directly. So I do applaud Donald Trump for saying that. I think that's a very intelligent thing to say. And I'm not against Trump. I just didn't expect this to come from him simply because during his administration, he was one of the spearheads who was trying to get TikTok to sell here in the United States. So I thought he would have been backing the current proposal. Next story is Apple. So Apple has acquired a AI company called Darwin AI. This is a company that does a lot of different things with AI. One of the things they do is quality control and product analysis. Apple is probably going to integrate that into a lot of its manufacturing, potentially. But obviously, this is going to be integration into the next iOS system. So we've talked about this on the channel before, where Apple is greatly restructuring their AI. They're moving stuff from California into Texas, and I believe they're going to be building a larger campus there specifically focused on AI and how they're going to integrate that into other products. And I have full faith that Apple's probably going to build a very intriguing AI system and or product. Apple is very good at creating a network between its products, and I think that with a backbone of AI can be something very formidable. Unlike a lot of other companies, I think we neglect to say that Apple is built entirely for the consumer. Businesses don't use Apple, right? It's kind of a ridiculous thing to say. Maybe if you're a designer, photographer, yeah, sure. But let's be honest, large-scale businesses need PCs. Apple just doesn't have the power. It doesn't have the utility of it. Apple builds consumer products, and it builds good consumer products. I can't say they're wrong. They're definitely not the first to the game ever, but usually when they enter, they create a very fashionable, very easy to use, very user-oriented product that the common person will use. So like I use ChatGPT. I do use it, I don't want to say frequently for my business, but I do use it for my business on a weekly basis. And I try to integrate more and more of that on the day. But I think most people just use ChatGPT for fun. There's not really a good AI product that regular consumers are using on a day-to-day basis. I think Apple's going to be the company that builds that product. The last story is just one we've been following for a while, Arkhouse and Maceys. So I reported to you a few weeks ago that Arkhouse has raised their bid to buy out Macy's to $6.6 billion, which is a very sweet offer considering the market cap of Macy's is down due to terrible quarter after terrible quarter. So they did reject the last offer at 6.6. That hasn't changed. However, what has changed is that they have opened their books to Arkhouse and are essentially saying in a press release, in a letter to Arkhouse, that we are open to higher bids if they come. So if Arkhouse looks at their books and finds that there's probably more value in there than they assumed, they're probably going to make a higher offer, probably closer to 7 or 8 billion, and might in fact end up purchasing Macy's. I don't think that's a good thing. I've seen this play out multiple times. We all have, where a investment group comes in, buys a retail store, sells it off piece by piece, liquidates it, and then it disappears. So I do not think, and Arkhouse is specifically geared at this. Their company is focused specifically on real estate assets. So they will buy a company for their real estate assets and then leverage those real estate assets, whether they're selling them, leasing them, et cetera, et cetera. This is what the company is focused on. So we've seen this play out time after time after time. So if Macy's does this, I think it leads to the collapse of Macy's. Soon, it doesn't have to be a fast burn. It could be a slow burn, as it was with Sears. I guess Sears is still technically around, but is it really? But this is a story that plays out often in Wall Street, and I think sooner or later will be the death of Macy's, which is unfortunate. It's a brand that's been around for over 100 years. It's a brand that I think lots of people in the United States identify with because of the Macy's for Thanksgiving Day Parade, because a lot of their first appliances came from there. Not to get overly sentimental, but I think these companies do add value to society. But when large corporations like this come in and just sell it off piece by piece, that value disappears. Pieces of culture disappear, and there's nothing there to replace it. So we will see. Again, I am rooting for Macy's to reject this offer because, as you know, if you watch this channel, I'm very anti-hedge fund, venture capital, private equity, etc. But we will see what happens. So that's it. Post number 100. That's the stories of the day. I hope you guys have a great St. Paddy's Day weekend. I will see you back here Monday.